Hello, fellow history lovers and English learners. Welcome back to our cozy storytelling corner. Have you ever wondered about the true meaning of a simple piece of sweetness? Have you ever thought about the long and winding road a small bean travels before it melts on your tongue? Chocolate is more than just a treat we buy at a local shop. It is a story of ancient gods, brave explorers, hidden secrets, and a deep, human hunger for something special. It is a tale that begins in the dark, wet shadows of a rainforest and travels through the golden palaces of kings and the noisy factories of the modern world. Today, we are going to look into the heart of this legend. We will explore how a bitter, spicy drink became a global symbol of love and comfort. Let us slow down our busy lives for a moment. Let us sit together and listen to the echoes of the past as we tell the story of the food of the gods. As we travel through time, try to imagine the smells and the sounds of these different eras. Imagine the heavy rain on green leaves and the steam rising from a cup of chocolate 3,000 years ago. Chapter 1. The Sacred Seed of the Spirit World. The story begins long ago, deep within the green heart of Central and South America. More than 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, the rainforest was a place of mystery and life. Here, the cacao tree grew wild under the tall canopy of larger trees. This tree, which scientists now call Theobroma cacao, produces large, colorful pods. Inside these pods are many seeds, or beans, covered in a sweet, white fruit. To the ancient people of this land, like the Olmecs and later the Maya, this tree was not just a plant. It was a gift from the heavens. They believed that the gods themselves had discovered the cacao tree on a mountain of food and gave it to humans to enjoy. The Maya people, in particular, lived in a world where nature and the spirit world were deeply connected. For them, every part of life was a ritual, and chocolate was the most sacred ritual of all. They did not eat chocolate as a solid bar like we do today. Instead, they crushed the beans into a paste and mixed them with water, chili peppers, cornmeal, and various spices. Life for a Mayan farmer was difficult but filled with meaning. They would carefully watch the cacao trees, waiting for the pods to turn a bright orange or yellow color. When the time was right, the harvest would begin. This was a slow and patient process. After picking the pods, they would open them to find the precious seeds inside. These seeds had to be fermented and dried in the hot sun for several days. This was the first great secret of chocolate. The heat and the air transformed the bitter beans into something rich and aromatic. The Maya would then roast the beans over an open fire. Imagine the smell of roasting chocolate filling a small village thousands of years ago. After roasting, the women of the village would grind the beans on a flat stone until they became a smooth, dark liquid. They would pour the drink from one tall pot to another, high in the air, to create a thick, brown foam. This foam was considered the most delicious and important part of the drink. To the Maya, the bubbles were like the breath of life. The Mayan people valued these beans so much that they used them as a form of money. In their markets, you could not buy a turkey or a rabbit with gold or silver. Instead, you would pay with cacao beans. 10 beans might buy you a rabbit, and 100 beans could buy you a good slave or a very large basket of vegetables. Because the beans were literally money growing on trees, the people treated the cacao groves with incredible respect. They even held religious festivals to thank the gods for the harvest. During these ceremonies, they would offer cacao to the statues of their gods and drink the spicy liquid from beautiful, painted clay cups. It was a drink for weddings, for the birth of a child, and for the burial of a king. When a great Mayan leader died, his people often buried him with jars of chocolate so that his soul would not be hungry on the long journey to the afterlife. This connection between chocolate and the human soul is one of the oldest parts of our story. Chapter 2. The Golden Cup of the Emperors. As the centuries passed, the power in the region shifted. By the year 1400, a new and mighty empire had risen to the north, the Aztecs. The Aztecs lived in a beautiful city built on a lake called Tenochtitlan. However, the climate where the Aztecs lived was too dry and cool to grow cacao trees. Because they could not grow the trees themselves, the Aztecs had to bring the beans into their city through trade and taxes. Cacao became a symbol of extreme wealth and power. Only the bravest soldiers, the most important priests, and the royal family were allowed to drink it. For the common people, drinking chocolate was a rare and special dream. The most famous of all the Aztec leaders was Emperor Montezuma II. Legend says that Montezuma was truly obsessed with chocolate. He believed that the drink gave him wisdom and strength. Some historical stories suggest that he drank more than 50 cups of chocolate every single day from golden cups that were thrown away after only one use. The Aztec style of chocolate was quite different from what we enjoy today. They called the drink zacalatl, which means bitter water in their language. They drank it cold, and they loved to mix it with very strong spices and even flowers. To the Aztecs, the dark color of the drink reminded them of blood, and the energy it gave them felt like a divine power. But the world of the Aztecs was about to change forever. In the year 1519, a group of Spanish explorers led by Hernán Cortés arrived on the shores of Mexico. When Cortés first met Montezuma, he was amazed by the strange customs of the empire. At a great dinner, the emperor offered the Spanish captain a cup of his favorite dark drink. At first, the Spanish did not like it. They found the taste too bitter and the spices too hot. One Spanish soldier wrote that it was a drink more suitable for pigs than for humans. But they soon noticed something very important. The beans were used as money. Cortés realized that these brown gold beans were the key to wealth in this new land. He watched as the Aztecs traded baskets of beans for precious stones and gold. The Spanish started to create their own cacao plantations, using the local people to do the hard work. They began to send ships full of cacao beans back across the Atlantic Ocean to Spain. This was a turning point in history. The food of the gods was leaving its home for the first time in thousands of years. As the beans traveled across the sea, the story of chocolate moved into a new chapter. It was no longer just a sacred secret of the American rainforest. It was about to become a global treasure. But first, the people of Europe had to figure out how to love a drink that was naturally very bitter. The journey from the spicy zacalatl of Montezuma to the sweet chocolate we know today would take many more years of experimentation and change. Chapter 3: The Secret Journey Across the Sea. When the first cacao beans arrived in Spain in the early 1500s, they were kept as a royal secret. The Spanish monks and the king's court were the only ones who knew how to prepare the drink. They decided to make some very important changes to the recipe to suit the European palate. Instead of chili peppers and cold water, they began to serve the chocolate hot. They also added a very expensive and new ingredient: sugar from the Caribbean. They also added cinnamon, vanilla, and other sweet spices. This new version of chocolate was a sensation. It was thick, warm, and incredibly sweet. For nearly 100 years, Spain managed to keep chocolate a secret from the rest of Europe. It was their private luxury, a symbol of the power they had found in the New World. It was a drink for the rich, the noble, and the religious leaders who needed energy during long days of prayer and fasting. Slowly, the secret began to leak out. In the 1600s, a Spanish princess married the King of France, and she brought her love for chocolate with her to the French court. From there, the fashion for chocolate spread like wildfire across the continent. By the mid-1700s, chocolate houses began to open in big cities like London, Paris, and Amsterdam. These chocolate houses were very special places. They were like the coffee shops of today, but much more exclusive and expensive. Wealthy men would go there to talk about politics, news, and business while sipping on a steaming cup of sweet, spiced chocolate. It was considered a sophisticated and healthy drink. Doctors of the time even wrote books claiming that chocolate could cure broken hearts, improve digestion, and give people a long life. However, because sugar and cacao were still very hard to get, chocolate remained a luxury for the upper class. A single cup of chocolate could cost more than a poor worker earned in a week. However, there was a dark side to this growing love for sweetness. As the demand for chocolate and sugar grew in Europe, the European powers needed more land and more workers to produce these goods. This led to the creation of massive plantations in Africa, and the Caribbean. Millions of people were forced into slavery to work in the fields, planting and harvesting cacao and sugarcane under terrible conditions. This is a painful part of the history of chocolate that we must remember. The sweetness that the people in London and Paris enjoyed was often built on the suffering of people thousands of miles away. The transition of chocolate from a divine gift to a global business was not without cost. During this time, the world was changing. The old ways of making things by hand were ending, and the age of machines was beginning. Chocolate was about to be transformed once again, this time by the power of the Industrial Revolution. Chapter 4. The Changing Heart of the Sweet Bar. For most of its history, chocolate was only a liquid. It was a drink for the elite. But in the 1800s, everything changed. In 1828, a Dutch chemist named Casparus van Houten invented a machine called the cocoa press. This machine could squeeze the natural fat, or cocoa butter, out of the roasted beans. This left behind a dry powder that we now call cocoa powder. This was a massive discovery because it made chocolate much easier to mix with water or milk, and it made the production process much cheaper. But more importantly, people now had extra cocoa butter. In 1847, an English company called J.S. Fry & Sons had a brilliant idea. They mixed some of the cocoa powder and sugar back into the melted cocoa butter, creating a paste that could be pressed into a mold. This was the birth of the very first solid chocolate bar. For the first time in history, people could eat chocolate instead of just drinking it. The invention of the chocolate bar changed the world. Shortly after, in the 1870s, a Swiss man named Daniel Peter and his neighbor, Henri Nestle, found a way to add powdered milk to chocolate. This created milk chocolate, which was much smoother and creamier than the dark, gritty bars of the past. Companies like Hershey in America and Cadbury in England began to produce these bars on a massive scale. Suddenly, chocolate was no longer just for kings and queens. It was affordable for children, for workers, and for families. It became the ultimate comfort food. During the Great Wars of the 20th century, chocolate bars were even included in the food kits of soldiers to give them energy and a small taste of home. The food of the gods had become the food of the masses. However, as production grew faster and faster, some of the original magic and quality of chocolate began to disappear. Many big companies started using more sugar and less cacao to save money. In this era of mass production, the connection to the original cacao farmers became even weaker. The deep, complex flavors of the different cacao beans were often lost in the search for a standard, sweet taste that everyone would like. Chocolate became a common snack, something we grab without thinking while waiting at the supermarket checkout. We began to forget the ancient rainforests, the Mayan rituals, and the long journey across the sea. The tragedy of modern chocolate was its loss of identity. It became a candy rather than a sacred experience. Yet, even in this time of cheap snacks, there remained a small group of people who remembered the true nature of cacao. They knew that chocolate had a soul, and they were determined to find it again. As we move toward the present day, we see a new movement growing, a movement that looks back at the past to find a better way for the future. Chapter 5. The Legacy of the Divine Tree. Today, we are living in a second golden age of chocolate. In the last 20 or 30 years, people have started to care deeply about where their food comes from. This has led to the bean-to-bar movement. Small, artisanal chocolate makers are going back to the roots of the story. They travel to remote farms in countries like Ecuador, Madagascar, and Vietnam to find the best beans. They treat these beans with the same respect that the Maya did thousands of years ago. They roast them carefully and use very little sugar, allowing the natural, complex flavors of the earth to shine through. When you taste this kind of chocolate, you might notice notes of fruit, flowers, or even the smoky air of the forest. It is a reminder that chocolate is a product of the soil and the sun. This movement also focuses on fair trade, ensuring that the farmers who grow the cacao are paid a fair price and can live a good life. The legacy of chocolate is a story of balance. It is a balance between sweetness and bitterness, between luxury and everyday life, and between ancient tradition and modern science. Science now tells us what the Maya and Aztecs already felt. That dark chocolate, in its pure form, is full of antioxidants and can actually be good for our hearts and our minds. It can make us feel happy and calm. But perhaps the most important part of its legacy is the way it connects us. Chocolate is a global language. Whether it is a gift on Valentine's Day, a warm cup of cocoa on a snowy night, or a shared dessert at a family dinner, chocolate is a way we show love and care for one another. It has traveled thousands of miles and thousands of years to reach us, carrying with it the history of entire civilizations. The spirit of the cacao tree is still alive, and every time we enjoy a piece of chocolate, we are participating in an ancient human tradition. As we look to the future, we must ask ourselves how we can protect this wonderful gift. Climate change is making it harder for cacao trees to grow in their traditional homes. We have a responsibility to support sustainable farming and to respect the people who work hard to produce our favorite treat. The story of chocolate is still being written, and we are all part of it. Let us remember the words of an old Mayan proverb. Cacao is the heart's medicine. It reminds us that even in a world that moves so fast, there is always time for a moment of sweetness and reflection. From the misty forests of the past to the bright lights of today, the journey of chocolate teaches us about our own history as humans, our curiosity, our mistakes, and our endless search for joy. May we always treat it with the respect it deserves, and may its story continue to inspire us for many centuries to come. I hope you enjoyed this long journey through the history of chocolate. It is amazing how much history can be hidden inside such a small thing, isn't it? As an English learner, stories like this help us not only practice our vocabulary, but also connect with the deep roots of human culture. This script was designed to help you listen to the rhythm of the language while learning about the world. Think about the many steps that were taken to bring that chocolate bar to your hand. It is a truly miraculous journey of thousands of years. Now, before we say goodbye, I want to leave you with a few thoughts to reflect on. Why do you think humans have always been so drawn to things that are both bitter and sweet? Is there something in your own culture that has a history as rich and complex as chocolate? Please share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. I would love to hear your favorite memories associated with chocolate or any new words you learned today. Remember, learning a language is like growing a cacao tree. It takes patience, the right environment, and a lot of care, but the results are truly wonderful. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and stay curious about the stories all around you. Goodbye for now, and may your day be filled with a little bit of sweetness.